Let's move on to Syria.
Yeah, so today I wanted to basically focus on what's happening down in the south, in Dara and Suwayda. We've talked about the emergence of a federalist movement down there to push through the Israeli, US-backed, and I include UK in that, agenda of balkanizing Syria. So let's go to the UNGA. And a video of the Israeli ambassador holding up an image of Mahsa Amini, the protester that was, according to Western legacy media, killed by Iranian security forces. The reality, of course, is she collapsed of heart issues, ended up in hospital and died in hospital. But let's have a look at this. So the ambassador was unceremoniously removed from the UNGA assembly. He of course raised this image during President Raisi's speech, but funnily enough, almost I think it was the same day, protesters in Suwayda in southern Syria also started to hold up images of Mahsa Amini. I'm sure there is absolutely no coincidence there. Of course, we've talked about Israel's backing of this movement in southern Syria and how it intends to, by proxy, annex the territory, just as the US is using the Kurdish Contras to annex the northeast. So then if we move forward, the president of the Academy of Medical Sciences blasts the Lancet magazine for spreading lies about Iran's health sector. And Dr. Morandi made the remarks in a letter to an editor-in-chief of the Lancet medical journal, Professor Richard Horton, after the scientific magazine had published an article titled Offline, Mahsa Amini, Never Forget. And he again attacked the Western media lies about what happened to Mahsa Amini, and then, of course, the amplification of the protests for the next few weeks in Iran a year ago. This is a new article by a researcher for the Libertarian Institute, William van Wagenen. This is at the Cradle, an Israeli role in Syria's Suwayda protests. I recommend people read it. It's very detailed. It covers some of the things that I've already spoken about, but he's also dug into the connections between the Druze sheikhs and the Zionist government. Then of course we see, so what these movements are protesting against is, one, Iran. They're protesting against Syria's allies. So they're protesting against Iran, and here you have the connection with Ukraine again. Syrians and Ukrainians suffer from the same killer, which of course they're claiming is Russia. And then moving on, you'll see another protester wearing Suwayda Ukraine, or carrying a Suwayda Ukraine placard. Moving on. Now, this is again very interesting. So you'll remember I made a report about Republican Congressman French Hill entering the north of Syria a few weeks ago. Now, French Hill, Brendan Boyle, these are tweets put out by a Druze journalist on Twitter. So Brendan Boyle, who's a Democratic representative, French Hill, and then moving forward also another Republican representative, whose name?
Joe Wilson.
I can't read from him. Thank you. And basically, this was all organized, as you can see on the left, by the Syrian Emergency Task Force. Now, the Syrian Emergency Task Force, based in Washington, headed up by Moaz Mustafa, who was responsible for taking John McCain to Syria in 2013 and introducing him to ISIS leaders and other terrorist members. And also responsible for smuggling in the photographs and so on that have been largely discredited, that enabled the Caesar Act, which of course is punitive towards countries that come to the aid of Syria, that was introduced under the Trump administration. So just to give an example of how these organizations spin the reality. So here, the Syrian Emergency Task Force is claiming back in June, and it continues to claim now, that they broke the siege on Assad's siege on Rukban camp. Really? Let's have a look again at the map, Mike, if we can. And I've circled there Al-Tanif, the US illegal military base where they're training ISIS and other illegal armed groups. And then just below that, you'll see the Rukban camp that comes under the zone of US influence and exists inside the 55-kilometer exclusion zone established by the United States to prevent the entry of Syrian humanitarian aid and Russian humanitarian aid. So who's telling the truth here? Well, Eva Bartlett, who has actually spoken extensively to refugees from Rukban camp, will explain very well in the various articles and interviews that she's done if people are interested in going to look at that. And then I just want to move on to some more, and this is basically so how the mainstream media is plugging what is going on in the south. Syria protests gain steam, challenging Bashar Assad as he tries to put the civil war behind him. This same journalist who produced the tweets, Mahsa Amini, a Druze writer, journalist, and opposition activist from Suwayda, told CBS News that French Hill, had made it clear to Sheikh Hijiri, the sheikh that they all contacted to give him support, that he hoped relations between the US and the local Druze community would deepen, and Sharafuddin hoped the initial contact could signal new support in Washington for the opposition in Syria's civil war. So I don't think it can be any clearer than that this is an orchestrated revolution. Good news now, President Assad and the First Lady Asma al-Assad are in China. They arrived yesterday, actually. They were invited for talks on the economy and trade and developing the Belt and Road Initiative. But moving forward, Mike, please.
We have a little bit of video.
Yes, sorry. So basically, I mean, this was quite an extraordinary event. It appeared to be very last minute. I'm sure it wasn't, but the news was released quite late. China actually sent the plane to pick up the president and the first lady and to bring them to China, which was, again, quite extraordinary. They were invited to attend also the opening ceremony of the Asian Games. And if we can just move on, Mike.
Yeah, sorry, the text has
don't worry.
not wrapped properly.
Basically, what was discussed here, people can read this at their leisure, but just before I came on, I received what was actually discussed and signed by the two presidents. So an economic cooperation agreement between the two countries and a memorandum of understanding on the common context of a cooperation plan within the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative, which Syria joined in January 2022. Interesting that Chinese President Xi Jinping said China is ready to develop cooperation with Syria and jointly defend international justice under conditions of instability. Syrian-Chinese relations have existed for 67 years. They announced the establishment of the Syria-Chinese Strategic Partnership, which will be an important turning point in the history of bilateral relations in the face of unstable international situations. And we are keen to continuously make joint efforts to exchange firm support between the two countries and enhance cooperation between them to defend international justice and peace. Strong words here from Jinping. And Assad basically said this visit is important in its timing and circumstances as a multipolar world is being formed today that will restore balance and stability to the world. And it is the duty of all of us to seize this moment for the sake of a bright and promising future. So very positive. They also discussed the rebuilding of the electricity network and oil and gas fields in Syria. And I also wanted to point out the various meetings that are going on. Putin is due in Beijing in the next few weeks. There has been a meeting in Moscow with China. China urges deeper trade relations between China and Russia, despite Western opposition, of course. So very positive news for Syria, I hope.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Positive news. This is not something we get a lot of, Vanessa, is it? But at the end of the day, if we could deal with the people who want perpetual war in Ukraine and want war, it would seem, in any other country they can achieve it, we would be living in a better world. But thank you for giving us that.
We're going to leave it there?
Well, we're going to leave it there. I'm just going to encourage people who are subscribers to UK Column to join us for extra time. We're going to give you a little sneak preview of part of the studio coming along. There's the new studio. We feel you might like to see that. And have you got anything to say about?
Just reminder, we're moving this weekend. So Monday is going to be, we're still going to be doing a little bit of work. So we won't have a news on Monday. We will have an interview going out in the 1 p.m. slot on Monday. So the next news will be on Wednesday next week.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that from a comment in the chat box today. Yes, Mike will be very busy because he's got the event tonight and the move over the weekend. But we will all do our best for UK Column supporters. See you in a few minutes in Extra. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.